Let me tell you about the day my own son kicked me out of his house. No warning, no goodbye, just that sharp, cold feeling in my chest like the floor dropped out. I remember closing the door, feeling the latch click, louder than it should have been, and standing there with my old leather suitcase in my hand, fighting back the kind of tears that only come when the person you love most in the world betrays you. You know what I mean? I didn't cry, not at first. I just walked, kept my head down, suitcase rolling behind me, trying to breathe. My son Derek stood in the doorway, arms crossed like a judge, and his wife Tanya lurked behind him, wearing that smug little smirk people get when they think they've finally won an argument. The house, once warm and bright, felt cold and small. They kept the shutters closed, though the sun was high in the sky, like even daylight wasn't welcome anymore. "You should have told us, Ma," Derek said, the words cutting deeper than he knew. "You've been eating our food, sitting here all day doing nothing." I blinked. "I've been resting," I whispered. "I'm not well." "I didn't want to worry you." Tanya snapped. "Not well or not working? We're struggling, Derek. We can't carry your mama too. It's not fair." He just stood there, didn't defend me, didn't remember the woman who cleaned motel rooms and skipped her own meals to buy him textbooks after his father died. Instead, he just said, "It's time you figured out your own way. We've got kids to raise." And that was it. No hug, no thank you, not even a pat on the back. Just me, walking away, the sound of my suitcase wheels scraping over the cracked pavement echoing down the block. I ended up on an old bus bench 3 streets over, sitting with the weight of 72 years pressing down on me. My hands shook, not from cold, but from holding back everything I wanted to scream. What Derek didn't know, what nobody knew, was that I hadn't been fired. I resigned. My back had finally given out. Doctor said one more heavy box and I'd end up in the hospital. And though the church begged me to stay, I quietly slipped out, just like always. I knew how to live with little. Hell, I'd done it my whole life. What I didn't know was that losing that part-time job would mean losing my family too. As I watched the cars go by, I remembered the house Derek lived in. That was my house, bought with a lifetime of work, signed over to him when he promised to take care of me forever. Turns out, forever lasted less than 2 years. But you know what? I didn't feel bitter, because I had a secret. I had something my son had never bothered to ask about. 34 years ago, when my husband died in that factory accident, the insurance payout wasn't much, but tucked in that mountain of paperwork was a deed, some chunk of land out in the country an old uncle had left us. No water, no road, worthless according to everyone who looked at it. Sell it, they said. Get what you can. But I kept it. Paid the taxes every year, even when I was dead broke, just in case. Last fall, a young man in a sharp suit showed up, asked about that land. Said some big company was buying up parcels for a solar energy project. The number he offered made my knees buckle. I told him to keep it private. Had the money wired to a trust in my husband's name, managed by a church foundation. Nobody else, not even Derek, knew about it. To them, I was just Mama Martha with her old apron and empty purse. But tucked inside my bag that day, walking away from my own son, was a checkbook and a card tied to $1 million and change. $1.4 million, to be exact. That night, I stayed at a women's shelter, not because I had to, but because I wanted to sit among people who understood what it means to be overlooked. I shared my food, listened to stories, offered what comfort I could. The next morning, I went to look at a crumbling little cottage on the edge of town, weeds everywhere, roof leaking, walls cracked. I paid cash. 3 weeks later, it was restored, registered under Grace Holdings LLC. No one knew it was mine. I moved in with peace in my heart and a plan forming in my mind. I wasn't looking for revenge. I wanted to build something, a place that wouldn't throw people away just because they hit hard times. 2 years slipped by. Derek's luck changed, just not in the way he thought it would. The house he bragged about, the one I paid off, went into foreclosure. He tried every hustle out there, odd jobs, warehouse work, get-rich-quick schemes, but debts piled up, marriage fell apart, and Tanya left with their 2 boys. That house, so full of arguments, was finally quiet, but in the worst possible way. That winter, Derek ended up sleeping in a friend's basement, clutching a wrinkled flyer he found at the library. The headline said, "Martha's Table, Community Meals, Shelter, Support for Families in Need." He stared at the name. Martha? Couldn't be. But something made him walk across town the next morning. He found the place, fresh paint, sunflowers by the door, with sign above the entrance. Inside, the smell of bread and soup, kids laughing, volunteers moving with purpose. Behind the desk, in a soft beige cardigan, sat a woman he barely recognized. Older, sure, but not defeated. Calm. Strong. "Mama," he whispered. I looked up, a little surprised, but not shaken. I stood, walked around the desk, and he just broke. "I lost the house. Tanya's gone. I have nothing. Mama." I didn't know where else to go. I let the silence settle for a moment. Then I said, "Come inside. You look cold." We sat across from each other, steam curling up from 2 mugs. "This place? It's yours?" he asked. I nodded. "When you left, I thought you had nothing." I smiled. "I had peace, Derek. And enough." He stared at me, fingers clutching his mug. "Why didn't you say you had money?" I shrugged. Would it have changed anything? He didn't answer, so I kept going. I needed to see who'd stay close when I had nothing left to give. That's how I know who to build for. I didn't want riches. I wanted purpose. He bowed his head, voice cracking. "I was awful to you. You trusted me, and I threw you out." I reached across, squeezed his hand. "You forgot yourself for a while. That doesn't mean you can't find your way back." He cried, quiet and ashamed, but I forgave him, because that's what love does. That spring, Derek started showing up every day, volunteering at Martha's table. Fixed things, served meals, found meaning again. Every Friday, we'd sit out on the porch at sunset, watching the neighborhood kids run around, and I'd feel that old ache in my chest start to heal. One evening, I handed him a faded envelope. Inside was the original deed to the house I'd given him and a voided check from the land sale, both framed. "You don't owe me a thing," I said. "But now you know what happens when love comes before pride." Derek looked at me, really looked at me, and I saw the man I always knew he could be. Years later, when I finally passed, nothing fancy, no headlines, no gold casket, just folks from every walk of life packed into a little church. People from shelters, schools, kitchens, all there to share their stories. Derek stood at the front, holding my favorite apron, and said, "My mother left her home with a suitcase and a quiet heart. And in that silence, she built something bigger than any of us could imagine. She didn't just feed people, she forgave them." And above the door, carved in wood, were my words. "The doors that close behind you can't match the ones you open for others." Derek, once lost, had become the man I always believed he could be, all because I chose love over revenge. Now, let me ask you, where do you stand on all this? What's worth more to you, pride or forgiveness? Drop your thoughts below, share your stories, and let's talk about what real justice looks like out here in the real world, where kindness can change everything.